In this video, I'm going to show you multiple ways that you can install drawer hardware. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Jason Bent, and today we're just going to talk about some different ways that you can go about installing drawer hardware, from very inexpensive options to more expensive options. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to be using these pieces of scrap wood that are supposed to simulate drawer fronts. The thing I'm trying to target more in this video is the technique on how to go about laying everything out to drill your holes for the drawer hardware. So let's just go ahead and get into it with the very first technique. So before getting started, let's just real briefly talk about some different options. So most of your traditional drawer hardware is going to be a single knob, something similar to this. This is just a crappy wooden one that I took off of one of my bifold doors for this video. And then you have something like this that's going to have two holes that are spaced out a certain distance, or something a little larger like this, or even much larger versions of the same thing. So everything that I demonstrate is all going to be on one of these pretend drawer fronts. This video I want to focus primarily on ones that are going to have two handles. So let's use this example. So we know that this is 200 millimeters wide, and we know what the width is. So if you're going to, let's say you just have one, well then you can just mark it. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to mark all over the front. So I'm going to get a decent idea. I'm going to take some of this tape and I'm going to get a general idea of where I want it, right? So let's say that I know I want my pole to be, somewhere in this area. So I'm going to put this piece of tape down. And what this piece of tape is going to allow is for me to make all my markings on it. So this right here is a 4-inch handle. And let's say that I want this to be 2 inches down from the top. So I'm going to go 2 inches. I can mark it. Okay, so now I have a 2-inch line. I know that this is the center line from the top. Well, what I want to do is I want to extend that line all the way across like this. So my handle is going to go on the line right there. Now we need to figure out what the center of this panel is. Okay, so this is 346 millimeters. Half of that is 173. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my center point. So here's my center point. This is my line. I want to make sure that my pole falls on that line. So now we need to figure out how far off of that center line we need to go. So we know that this is a 4-inch pole. So what you can do is take any measuring device. This is one reason why I like a center line marking, because right here it has 0 and it goes out in both directions on each side. So now I'm going to mark my 2. I'm going to mark my 2. And now I have my reference points for where I need to drill. Anytime I am drilling a drawer front, and I always do my drawer fronts prior to assembly because I actually like using the holes to do my assembly. So I always put something behind it just to help with blowout. So now I've got my mark. I'm going to use a 3/16" drill bit, which is pretty common. Drill my first hole. Drill my second hole. And then if you look at the back, they're nice and clear. I can take off my tape at this point because now I no longer need my tape and there is no marks on the board. And as you can see here, the holes line up just right with the drawer pull. Now that's the most basic, simple way you can do it. And if you only had one to do, that maybe that's not the worst technique in the world, but it's time consuming, especially if you have a lot to do. So that's where something like making your own jig to do multiple that are the same. So let's say I had 10 of these that I had to do, and I only wanted to worry about laying out those markings one time, and then I could just use something to go from cabinet to cabinet. Well, then you could go ahead and make some sort of jig. And a way that you can do that is by just taking some scrap that you have inside of your shop and using something like this CA glue. You could use something like pin nails or brad nails or anything, right? And I'm just going to make a quick jig. And now I have something that I could create and make repeatable. So the way that this would work is I'm basically placing it at the top of each one of my drawer fronts, and then I can just take this and put it on each one. Now there's a couple of things that I would suggest doing for this. So the first thing I would suggest is that you mark a center line, right? So this is 160 millimeters wide, so my center line is going to be at 80 millimeters. I'll show you why you're going to do this here in just a moment. Okay, so now I have my center line marked. Okay, so now let's kind of follow the same logic, and I just want to establish my line here, right? So you're doing the exact same steps that you just did, except you're doing it on your jig, okay? So now I know that I have a ton of these that I need to do. Let's go ahead and mark my 2 inches out on each side. I can go ahead and drill my holes. I've got a nice clean cut. Okay, and now, if you look right here, right, everything lines up. And so obviously something you always want to do is on your first one, put the screws through, make sure that everything lines up. But I can look at it right here and see that everything's going to line up just fine. So now I have a jig. If I knew I wanted to repeat this every single way, and this is the one that it works for on this project, this jig will do everything very quickly. And when I say quickly, it's because I can go ahead and just place it on my piece and I can drill my holes. Now going back to the center line, right? So I have this center line here. You can do a couple of different things. You can either set up a stop, which you're going to see on some other techniques later, where you can just reference the same side and it immediately goes to center. Or you can mark the center lines on all of your pieces. If I was to mark the center line on this again, right, we said it was 173, mark that center line, trace that line on here. Now I have a center line for reference on any piece that I do. All I have to do is hook my jig to the top, line up that center line, and then I can go ahead and drill my holes. And the great thing about it is I finish one, now I can bring the second one in. I can do the same thing. I have my center line marked, I go through, I just take this here, place my bit into the hole, and without moving it, it's also important, and drill my holes, and now I'm able to do the same thing in a very quick, repeated manner on multiple, if I'm doing various ones that are the same size. Obviously a benefit to these is, let's say that this is you build, cabinets in the same size, or you always put the stuff in the same part of the door. You can make these and save these and put them aside, and then you have repeatable jigs. All right, so let's take it one step further with the idea of jigs. Then you have something like this that you can purchase, which these are relatively affordable and pretty readily available. And this is essentially taking what we just made, this, and taking it one step further by making it adjustable. So something like this here, I can loosen these knobs, I can adjust this at different heights. This comes in both imperial and metric, and then you have these adjustable knobs here that you can shift from one to the other. So I've got it at 5 inches, 4.5, 4, 3.5, 3, 2.5. And so it does make it a lot quicker, and then you're able to change between. So for example, if this was a 4-inch, I know all I have to do is set these up to 4 inches like this, tighten these down. A little bit finicky because everything is done from the rear. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and show you the back side of it real quick. I can lock these down. On the back side, you have a couple of different references. This inside portion here is for metric, and it aligns with this top line, and then imperial out on the sides, and you can basically move to where these arrows will actually fall on whatever you want. And then you just tighten the knobs down. So let's go ahead and get this thing set up for that same handle. So we're gonna go 2 inches over here. Now again, you have to look at this from the back side. 2 inches here, and then this one we already have set to 4. So let's just check it real quick. So if you look at that, 4 inches, looks like everything lines up real nice. And then if you were just doing a center one, you can actually take one of these and lock it in. And they have these little detents here. So it does make it nice because it's adjustable. So I could be doing one size on multiple doors, then I can set it up and do another size or single knobs or whatever the case is. Now there's a couple of things with this one. Is it does not come with any sort of drill bit, so obviously you have to provide a 3/16 or a 4.5 millimeter drill bit. These are the bushings that you would actually do the drilling through. but it also doesn't have any sort of stop to reference a side. And so again, this time I'm not going to put the tape down. I'm actually just going to mark the center with a pencil. So half of 378 is 189. So I still need to have some sort of reference mark for the midpoint, right? So again, I went ahead and marked my line. Okay. So now I want my, let's go a little bit further down this time. So let's say I want to do it 4 inches. Well, I'm going to adjust this 4 inches, 4 inches, and it can be off. It is easy to be crooked on this one, but if you take your time, it's really no problem. So now I'm going to place it on my piece right here, and you can actually look down in this window and you can see a line, but it's set now. And all I have to do is drill out my holes. And we're good to go. So the same thing as the homemade jig, but the benefit to this one is now let's say I have 3-inch ones that I need to do. Well, that's too easy. I can just adjust it, move that over to 3. I can adjust this, move this over, well, maybe, move this over to 3, and there it comes off again. Tighten this down, and now I can do the same thing with maybe a 3-inch pole, or I can go all the way to 5. And you're limited a little bit. The widest handle you can go is 5 inches. The most narrow handle you can go, or the shortest, you know what I mean, is 2.5 inches. And then like I said before, you can put one of these in here and it'll lock into these detents, and I could just do single hole drilling and obviously adjust the height very easily by using something like this. And then you also do have a scale down here. I don't know if I talked about that. So you got 0, and you have both imperial and metric. And you also have metric measurements on the top. So this is a 4-inch. This right here is labeled as a 96 millimeter, which is common. And so if you look right here, they have detents for 96 millimeter. The funny thing about this is, though, in order to use the detents on the other side, I have to actually remove this, flip it around to where the arrow is on the detent on the other side. But it does give you the ability to use both. And so for the last one, which is definitely the most expensive option, but it's also the most versatile option, and that is one of these jigs from True Position Tools that comes in this case, as you can see here. So let me get out some of the parts. So I'm not really going to go into big specifics with this because I already have a video that does that. And I'll leave a link to that video up in the corner now if you guys want to go check that out, or I'll also leave it in the video description. But so this is just another option, right? Well, this kind of takes everything and puts it into one. So here we have both metric and imperial on the front, fully visible, and everything is accessible for us to adjust as needed right here in our hands, right? So for the purposes of this one, we're going to go ahead and set this one. We're going to go 3 inches down from the top, and we know it's a 4-inch hole right here, right? So 4 inches. So we're going to go 2 inches on this side, and we're going to go 2 inches on this side. Then I would take this and I'd place this at the top of my board, as you can see here. But what about the center line? Okay. Well, what was the measurement of this again? Okay, so this is 378 millimeters, right? Well, I don't need to draw a center line on this, and here's why. Because this comes with a stop. So what you can do is I can reference off one side of my piece, okay? So whatever measurement I put on here, let's just put it on 100 for ease here. So I'm gonna put this at 100. There's little cursor lines. The 100 is right here. I'm gonna put it right there, okay? Now I'm going to take this extension rod that comes with it. This slides in, and we are at 100. And so now I know that anything I use on this side is just going to be in a continuation, okay? And that's where the stop comes into play. So we know that the center line on this one, because this panel is the same size as the other one, is going to be 189. So I'm going to go ahead and set my distance to 189. This is the drill bit that comes with this set. And so all I have to do is I can adjust the depth stop if I need to, so I can just drill in and come right out. And I just need 2 reference edges here, right? So as long as I know that my plate is down and I know that I slide it over, I know that I'm centered in that panel, and then I can use it, drill my holes, and then I can go to the next one, bring this down. So I'm doing the exact same task as the last jig, but this one is far more versatile, right? And so you can kind of see the progression as the price gets a little bit more expensive for different things. And so now let's say that we had one that we just wanted to do a single knob in the center, right? So a different drawer front, maybe we just want a single knob. I don't have to change anything because I can just use my center hole here and we're good to go. You obviously have the ability to go to a much wider profile drawer pull or different drawer hardware. I can set these out here like this, and then there's actually extensions that you can get to go even further if need be. Let's take these off completely and let's put this stop at, we'll just say, let's just go with 3 inches as it's easy. What if I wanted to put a couple of single door handles, one more out to the side of each one? Well, what can I do? I can actually use this and it's reversible. So I drill my first one, I can flip it over, come to the other side, drill my hole, and now I know that the hole is the same on both sides. And this is one of the biggest things that I believe truly makes a difference with the jigs is the stop, because now you don't have to worry about any kind of center line. You can set it and reference that. All right, so this is 4 different ways that I've shown you that you can do this. All of these ways I have used. I primarily use the true position jig now just because I have it and I find it very useful. But just using some measuring devices and laying out your lines in all of your drill hole locations, then to, if you have to be repeatable, using something like this, where you make your own jig using scrap wood in your shop, then upping your adjustability a little bit more by going with something like this from Kreg, where you have the ability to change the sizes and use this jig for multiple different applications. And then obviously you have something here which gives you the most options in terms of adjustability, but again, it's the most expensive of all of the options. So inexpensive to almost nothing to most expensive, and these are all different ways that you can do the same exact task. I'm just showing you some of the benefits to getting something that assists and will help save you time in the future. That's all I got for you in this video, everybody. Hopefully you found it useful. If you have any questions about any of the topics that I covered, please leave your questions down in the comments section below. Also, if you want to find out any additional information or purchase any of the items shown in this video, I will leave affiliate links down below. And finally, if you want to see more of what I'm doing, head over to my website, benswoodworking.com, and I've got links to everything that I do over there. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Until next time, get out in the shop, try something new, and I will see you in the next video.